We begin with the energy emergency and the growing pressure to help solve it with a significant boost to renewables. It comes as Australia formally commits to a 43% emissions reduction target by 2030.
It's done.
Done.
It's official. We've shed our status as climate pariahs.
Today, Australia turns the climate corner.
Bad news for fans of interminable culture wars, but good news for the planet.
We send a message to the rest of the world that we are partners in tackling the climate emergency.
And the closure of the largest coal mine in New South Wales ought to help. With BHP unable to find a buyer, it today announced the Mount Arthur mine will shutter by 2030. Labor pledging not to leave workers in fossil fuel industries behind.
We will provide the framework for the jobs of the future, powered by clean, renewable energy.
Sadly, that concludes the feel-good component of this story, the focus turning to fixing the current energy crisis. And after yesterday's sensational suspension of the national energy market, New South Wales Treasurer Matt Keane put energy providers on notice.
My message to the generators needs to be very clear. Stop putting your profits above people.
But rogue operators gaming the system are just the pointy end of our supply problems.
Each of these plants that has been offline have got different problems. A technical problem with one that blew up last year in Queensland, flooding of the coal mines in New South Wales, and some difficulties with gas-fired power stations, mainly a combination of getting gas to the stations and price.
The long-term fix, future-proof our energy infrastructure with a long overdue overhaul of the national grid so it's fit for the inevitable transition to new energy sources.
You can't fix a decade of inaction in 10 days.
But getting through the next few days and weeks means patching up the same crumbling infrastructure that we're trying to phase out.
High amongst the factors is unscheduled outages of ageing coal-fired power stations. And everybody's been working to fix that.
If we transitioned off expensive coal and gas, we would have clean, cheap renewables to power us with the right backup. Instead, we have a grid that's in chaos.
So how long before the light at the end of the tunnel runs on renewables?
Well, Energy Finance Analyst Bruce Robertson can help us with that question. He joins us now. So, Bruce, let's deal with the big chunk of coal in the room right now. Is the quickest way to fix these problems by firing up all our coal capacity immediately?
Look, it's the old adage comes in here, if you're in a hole, stop digging, and we need to stop digging the coal hole. So, look, the coal-fired power stations are very unreliable now. And this power crisis has been precipitated by them. And the power crisis is only in part of Australia, like 1/3 of Australia, the whole of Western Australia. It's business as usual over there.
So do we need to fire them up?
Well, we do need coal at the moment, the existing coal-fired power stations. We haven't built enough replacement capacity yet for them. So we need to get going and start building new generation that's more reliable.
You know, you've got a kind of a very relaxed demeanour, Bruce, which is reassuring, but it does seem like it's going to be difficult for the government to walk the line between easing the crisis and propping up the ageing infrastructure of the fossil fuel industry.
Well, no, they don't have to look far to find the solutions. You know, we only have to look at every other gas exporting nation in the world and to Western Australia. In fact, in every other LNG producing and exporting country in the world has globally cheap domestic gas prices.
I'm sure the cheque is in the mail from Mark McGowan right now, Bruce. You just described WA as another country, which he's probably pretty happy with.
well, sorry, because it almost seems like it, because they seem to understand that protecting the domestic consumer and industrial consumer of gas is very important, and making sure that we can have cheap power is an important part of government policy. In Eastern Australia, we don't really think that that's necessary for some reason known only to our politicians.
You seem very chill about this. When your family says to you, this is really confusing, why is it so bad? How do you explain it?
Oh, pretty simply. I just say, if you brought in a domestic gas reservation policy like WA has, we'd be pretty chill like the people over in WA are.
What happens when somebody wakes you rudely in the middle of the night? Do you get upset then, Bruce? Well, what pisses you off, Bruce?
There's an energy crisis.
We need Bruce for the energy crisis.
Well, I suppose when you see obvious solutions, it seems pretty simple. And the obvious solution is a domestic gas reservation policy forcing down the price of gas. And then the price of electricity would fall. And everyone would be happy again.
Oh, I feel like you just read us a bedtime story, Bruce.
No, Daddy. We love you.
Bruce, thank you. On that rather strange note, we'll leave it there, Bruce. Thank you very much.
Bruce, can you just say good night, Peter, good night, Hamish, good night, Lisa, and good night, Kate?
No, I'll say good night, Mummy and Daddy. Good night.
Oh, goodness.
Sometimes interviews just go in a direction you're not expecting.
It certainly took a turn at some point, didn't it? It really did.
Someone's been enjoying the gas industry too much.